I think there are a few really important lessons. One is it takes much longer than you think. We found from funding, from agreeing funding to programs getting fully functional was 3 years. So I'm really delighted that this is a 10-year program because just beginning to get systems in place takes much longer than you think. A second lesson, and one that you know that we talk about a lot, is the nature of community engagement and how to work with local people on an agreement on what problem you're trying to solve before you work on what the solutions are. Because unless there's an agreement on the problem, you're not going to get the right solutions. We made real mistakes on providing what local people said they wanted without linking that to what the outcomes we were looking for in Sure Start. You do what people want to engage, but it isn't going to change child outcomes. I think there is a real difficulty about the difference between universal and targeting, because universal is for everybody, obviously, and targeting tends to be, depending on what the issue is, but if it's domestic violence or child protection or those sorts of issues, tend to be the sort of bottom 2 to 5%. I think if you're going to make population measurable changes, you have to concentrate on narrowing the gap between the 30% and the rest of the child population. So there will be lots and lots of children who live in loving, warm families who are not subject to abuse, but who probably don't get a particularly healthy diet, who certainly do not get a language-rich environment, who may have lower levels of parental depression. So it's that difficulty about progressive universalism, or what Michael Marmot calls proportional universalism. How do you deliver a universal service in a way that it addresses the differences in the trajectories of different groups of children? I think one of the important things to say about the outcomes is that, first of all, they're interrelated. So in terms of things like emotional development and social development, attachment and attunement is really important. Well, attachment and attunement happens when mothers hold their babies and sing to them and talk to them. And it's difficult to sing and talk to babies and not impact on their language development in a positive way. So these are not discrete things. There is a discrete program that will help this, and then you need a different program that will help that. People always think of language development as affecting cognitive outcomes and school performance. Of course it does, but it also affects children's abilities to express how they feel. And that, of course, has a huge impact on their behavior, particularly boys. If they can't express how they feel, then they respond physically. Their behavior deteriorates. So there are relationships between all of them. The diet nutrition one we selected because of the long-term impact on the health of the nation of the increasing obesity crisis and the cost to the NHS in adulthood through heart disease, through hypertension. But we also selected it because we thought it was the hardest one to deal with, because aside from breastfeeding, there isn't really clear what you do to improve diet nutrition in very young children. So we picked the three that we thought had the most important long-term outcomes, but of them, in my view, the diet nutrition one, aside from breastfeeding, is the hardest one to really impact.